Okay. Hello, everyone. There we go. Now I see my little prompt. Welcome back to the Discovery Channel. This, of course, is Tom O'Connor speaking to you from rainy and cool New Orleans. It's unseasonable weather for us, which we hope is not a portend of anything for the hurricane season, which was of course the most active ever last year. We're hoping we'll cut it down a notch from there. As always, I'm joined by Rachi Messing, who is here with us from currently war-torn Tel Aviv. Rachi, I hope you're doing well and the family's all safe, as safe as can be.
Everyone's doing okay.
All right. And we are happy to be joined by Christy Burke, my old friend Christy Burke, who's the president, CEO, chief bottle washer. Actually, probably no more bottles. How old is the baby now? Not a baby anymore?
7.
7. Ouch.
Yeah, no more bottles.
Big bottle.
I don't even want to hear about it. Now you're drinking the bottles, right?
Yeah, that's right.
That's not till they're teenagers.
Christy's a consultant in our space and a marketing guru and the president of Burke and Company. Welcome, Christy. You're still based in New York City?
I am. Thanks so much,
All right.
Tom. Rachi, it's great to be here with you. This is making my day.
All right. Well, we always try to start off by how you get started in this wacky business of ours. Now, I met you. Actually, I'm not sure if I met you in 2006 for the first time. You were one of the people who was instrumental in helping us with the tech show we did right after Hurricane Katrina.
That's right.
My most vivid memory of you is you, me, and Gail sitting on the floor in the hotel room, stuffing the bags with all the goodies from the different companies. And we're going,
yes, I remember that very well.
Right? But I think I might have met you. I might have met you before that. Gail actually knew your dad for a long time because Gail had been on the board of the ABA Tech Show.
Okay.
Your dad, of course, was running WorldDox at the time, I think she was on the board when he was still actively supporting. Well, not that the company isn't actively supporting the tech show, but he was still actively involved in running the company. Yeah. Yeah,
and he was the one going to those shows and pressing the flesh and shaking hands and everything. So
I remember that. I remember he and Gail hit it off. God knows why Gail had such a hard time making friends.
She always asked about him too, and I think they always got along. They're both the kidders of all kidders, So the Irish.
And I met you probably in 2010, give or take?
Yeah, I think that's about right, Rachi. Was it with BIA?
Discover Ready.
Discover Ready, that's it.
Yep.
That's right. So, I was doing Discover Ready's PR and marketing before you were acquired by Dolan.
Yeah. So
that's great. Times. Oh boy. Yeah. I guess we all go way back in this crazy history.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, but you're right. My dad, Tom Burke, he's now the CEO chairman of WorldDox, World Software Corporation, and Ray Zwiefelhofer is the president now. You may have met Ray. Yep. And interestingly, how I met Ray was through that Hurricane Katrina relief effort.
Really?
Because NQ, the company at that time, he was co-president of NQ.
Oh.
And they were sponsors of the Katrina event, the CLE event that we did.
Wow.
And I always remembered meeting Ray, and so I was the original contact to introduce him to World Software. So that Katrina event was very important for a lot of things.
Probably where I met Ray as well then, because
that could be.
I don't believe I knew him before that. Yeah, that was a great event, and I can never thank you enough for all the help you did. That was instrumental in helping people get back on their feet, and more than anything, giving them a sense of hope. It was only about 6 months after the hurricane, and things were still in really bad shape. And
yes, I mean, remember Monica Bay was down there with us.
Yeah.
And
Joanna
Forche went to Bernie Svenson's house for drinks one night, right?
Yeah.
Because he's down there your way.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember making a tour of the, you know, some of the areas, and the taxi driver, I got in the taxi and he took one look at me, you know, this young blonde blue-eyed woman. He's like, "Are you sure you want to go in those places?" I said, "I'm sure."
It was still bad, yeah.
Oh my gosh, we drove around and, you know, there were fast food restaurants with all the chairs upside down and just
boats on top of houses.
Crushed in and no people around, no traffic lights working, just, it was like the most desolated place.
But luckily it's come back, thanks in no small part to efforts from people like you. I'll tell you the people who I always want, still when I go to New York, if I see a New York City policeman on the corner, I'll go up and thank him, because the NYPD didn't send, I think they volunteered to come down. You know, our police force had dispersed because they were residents.
Of course, right.
And the NYPD really was instrumental in helping provide some coverage for them. If it weren't for them, and of course National Guard units from all over the country. But I just remember, I mean, it still brings a tear to my eye, because I just remember walking down the street and seeing New York cops walking down Canal Street, you know? Yeah. Yeah.
I think that, you know, that experience brought the country together in a way that I would compare to September 11th, you know, in New York City, sort of that same kind of, the whole country is sending people to help and sending, you know, whatever they can do. I mean, it was like that. And
it was interesting because several years later, a number of years later, but the city of New Orleans sent a ton of firemen, firefighters, and officers up to New York after Sandy.
Oh boy, we need that.
Yeah, the city did not forget how much New York helped us.
Well, thank you for that. I remember I lived in Manhattan and lived on the 10th floor of an apartment building. And after we lost power for at least 7 or 8 days.
No.
And I operated my business out of my car in the basement garage under my building, because I could power my cell phone with my car charger.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know, I lived down near Union Square, which was one of the worst places because it's, you know, kind of, there's some reclaimed land and it's sort of became a floodplain.
A flood zone, yeah.
Yeah, and I remember south of like 28th Street, there were like no lights on, no stores open, everything closed. And you would literally go out to like 7th Avenue and hail a cab, like driving around, and get in a cab with whoever else was in the cab.
Yeah. Yes.
And once you hit 28th Street, all the lights were on and, you know, the stores were opening, and it was like the city was alive above 27th or 28th Street, but completely closed down
below that
where we lived. And I lasted about, you know, a week, and then I moved to a hotel on like 51st Street, you know, that Sheraton, New York, or Sheraton, Manhattan, one of those.
Yeah, yeah.
Right near the Hilton where Legal Tech is held.
Yeah, sure, of course.
I moved in there because I was like, enough roughing it. I think I've proven that I can do this, and I don't need to.
Yeah. I need a hot shower, right?
Exactly. Give me a working bathroom and clean sheets.
Yeah, and some coffee, hot coffee.
Yeah.
Well, luckily, let me ask you though, had you? I'm sorry, Rock. Just real quick. Had you started your business then, or were you still with WorldDox when we met then in 2006?
I had just started it. So I started at WorldDox, I think it was 2000. I started my company in 2004. So been 16 years, almost 17 years I've had Burke and Company. And of course, working at WorldDox for 4 years, I went to all the trade shows. I got to know everybody, all the media people. You know, I've always been sort of slightly extroverted, as Tom will tell you. So I, you know, when I said I think I'll start a business, a bunch of people called me up and said, "Could you do this? Could you do that? Could you do this?" Right. And boom, I had a business. And you know, a few months later, I got office space in Chelsea. And I was always batting between Chelsea and Flatiron and, you know, Gramercy, you know, that whole 23rd Street kind of corridor. Yeah. Now my office is on East 39th Street.
Wow.
Yeah. Which I think is,
moving up.
Yeah, exactly. when I get there, which is not that often right now. Yeah, no, I actually was thinking about this. I have really seen the e-discovery industry grow up.
That's why I asked about the date. Yeah.
Yeah. With Discover
that's
Ready, Rachi will tell you, right? I remember when the law firms were complaining about companies like Discover Ready taking away all the document business. Right?
So let's rewind. Was WorldDox your first foray into the legal technology space?
Yes.
Okay.
Before that, when my parents basically said they needed help in marketing, the company was growing, and I was working in the advertising industry at the time. I was an international account supervisor on a hardware technology account, which was Bluetooth technology, believe it or not, at the time, and like hubs and switches and and other things. 3Com was the account I was on. And it was really tough. I was working like 70, 80 hours a week. I was traveling internationally. I was exhausted. And I just was like, oh my gosh, this is not living. Everyone's like, wow, you went to Paris, you went to Milan, you went to Munich. I'm so jealous. I'm like, trust me.
Yeah.
You do not want this life.
A hotel room is a hotel room, right?
Exactly. It's like, yes, I may have physically been in those cities, but I can't tell you anything about them.
And this woman that traveled with us, she was from the UK team, and at the time they didn't have the euro, right? So it was all Deutschmarks and lira and all the different currencies. She had a valise full of money, like every currency of where we were going. She'd have 7 different kinds of currency like in this thing, and we'd get to a place and she'd just hand it out, like here's some Deutschmarks, here's some whatever. And
nice.
You really have no idea what it's worth at that point. You're just like, you give it to the taxi driver.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like, just take what you need and give me the change.
Nice.
I mean, talk about relying on the honesty of others. But yeah, so I basically moved over from, I had been in publishing working at Forbes on custom publishing titles and advertising sales before I went to advertising. And then I was in new business development for advertising and then account supervision of tech account. So I had some tech background. And of course, I had worked at my parents' company in summer. They had a computer leasing company before the software company. So I've been working there. I did my sister and I entered in all their original Rolodex files and, data entry, and answer the phones there in the summers and stuffed envelopes and all that jazz. So I knew computers from a young age. And so I joined in and, kind of built a marketing PR element within WorldDox. They were doing a lot of things and they had a huge reseller network, which they still have.
Right.
But, the background that I had really just helped crystallize a lot of the things. And I had a staff working with me, and, we won a lot of awards and the company did, really well. And it's, it's still going strong.
Good.
Yep.
Yeah. And so I was there for 4 years and then I started my own firm after that.
So what was it like spinning out? So, you had already done some stuff as an adult, you came out of college, you worked in the real world.
I was a grown-up.
Exactly. But then, you went back home. You went back to WorldDox and I'm sure just from a comfort level, very comfortable, being with family, being with people who you've known for a long time. Sure. And then all of a sudden going out and spinning out on your own to with a dream of building what you've now, we'll get to what you've now built. Right. But what was that like? What was that? I mean, were you nervous? Were you just, young and dumb and confident? Like, what was the...
Yeah, well, I actually started my first company when I was in my early 20s. I had a company called CKB Dynamics that was incorporated, and it was a catering company. I used to cater birthday parties and bridal showers and baby showers. And so that was my first company. And, then I joined, you sort of you have to find the right fit, I think, for entrepreneurship. You have to really find where you can catch on and make a go of, getting the clients and everything. So I already had this entrepreneurial spirit. My dad, my parents, my mother actually co-founded the company with my dad. So my mom was always, very involved with it. And my grandparents on my mom's side were also business owners. So I think I got the entrepreneurial spirit, and I was lucky to have 3 good clients sort of come to me right away. So I never had that really scary, like, okay, there's crickets and nothing's happening time, right? Although there was a small exception in 2008 and then last spring with COVID. Those were both
a little bit nerve-wracking. Yeah.
Nerve-wracking times, I think, for a lot of businesses. But no, I actually really enjoyed it. And I think the thing I'll say is that it's, to me, what I thought the business was going to be was more event planning and more, the things that I had done a lot of events. I had done other marketing campaigns and everything, but their PR was something that people really needed and wanted. They wanted to get press coverage for their companies. They wanted case studies written, thought leader articles written. And because I was an English and sociology double major in college, I had, a strong writing background and I kind of understood how things worked. And I just knew a lot of people. So I think it made it possible for me to build something that had momentum early on. So I didn't have that doubt thinking, maybe I made a mistake. Maybe I should go join another company. And I just loved working for myself. I remember having a conversation with my dad, who was our ROTC and who was in the Army. And I said, after high school, I said, well, I think I'll go into the military before going to college, just so I could really toughen myself up. And he goes, Christy, he's like, you don't even like it when I tell you what to do. He's like, you're going to have an entire life of people telling you what to do and you have to do it.
And you have no choice. You talk back.
Doesn't sound so good for me. So yeah, I like being my own boss, and I love the variety too of getting to work with all these different companies and different entrepreneurs themselves and learning about their technology and their services. It's actually really fascinating for me. I've seen so many things develop, so many arcs of development in this industry. I'm genuinely interested in it. So I think that's carried me through.
So let's talk a little bit about what you've now built. So you've had the company for 16, 17 years, give or take. How big are you guys?
So we're a boutique shop. I have 3 different people that work with me, and they are experts, they're writers, they're event planners, they're different people that I pull into the project. So it's kind of like in Mission Impossible in the beginning where he figures out who's going to be on the job, right?
Yep, exactly.
But so I really like that because my name is on the door and I feel very strongly about being involved in the day-to-day. And, over the years worked with maybe, 40, 50 companies.
Wow.
That now, some of it now are really huge. Clio is one of the ones that I worked on. I was their PR and marketing person for the first 5 years. And
now they're worth like $10 billion.
I know they're valued at over $1 billion. And at first it was really just me and the 2 founders at, I think, an ABA solo annual meeting in Santa Fe, New Mexico. It was the 3 of us. Right. And to see what they are now, it's so awesome.
Yeah. So nowadays, when most companies are coming to you, is it startups that start and then you help them, or is it mid-tier? Is it some large company? I mean, kind of what's the profile of the companies that you're working with in general?
Yeah.
Well, it's all of the above because, they acquired one of my clients, which is a corporate domain software company and services company. And then, a company, Integrion, I'm sure you're familiar with, is a client of mine.
Sure.
And then, some of the startups that I've worked with are like Out Legal, Evisort, it's been an interesting thing to work with a company that's a startup, and then to get them started and see them flourish and become a much bigger company, right?
Right.
Clio is an example of that. So usually the kind of clients I work with, they have a need for someone like me, right? A subject matter expert with very strong writing, very strong communications and relationships with the media. And so whatever mix that requires, whatever company needs a mix like that, they use it to supplement the resources they have. Sometimes I'm the only marketing person that they have. And sometimes they're, I'm doing just the PR and they have a large marketing staff, and I'm filling in the blanks of what they have in-house.
Right. So I'm going to ask a question that the terminology is probably wrong, because I'm going to ask, over the years, what's the coolest legal technology that you've seen? Because cool usually doesn't apply to legal technology, but maybe in all of your experience, you've seen something like that you were like, oh, that's cool.
Oh, that's such a good question.
See, and I think Rachi has, not to interrupt your train of thought, but I think
no, give me time to talk. Give me time to think. Buy me some time.
This is how it works here. Tom,
I like it. I like it.
He's hit on on what I see as the biggest problem for the big live shows like Legal Tech, like the ABA Tech Show, even for ILTA, which has great educational content, which I think is their strong suit. But there's no, what I used to call the wow factor. You walk through the halls now and you look at stuff, and 10 years ago we could be surprised by stuff and go, wow, that's really cool. Now it's like, yeah, okay.
Right. Things that seem so similar, to other things.
Or it's incremental. Like they did something really cool 5 years ago and they've been building on it, and that's great. It's not like there's anything bad there. It's just the wow factor is really nowhere near as prevalent as it used to be, if it is at all.
I think you could say, okay, everything worth doing has been done, but I will say that when I see, there are certain technology I see. I think the latest thing that happened when I saw that Evisort's technology, I'm not sure if you're familiar with them, but it's a data analytics tool. It works with contracts. I sort of
I forgot to tell you. Sorry to interrupt, Christy. I forgot to say, though, you cannot use the word or the phrase AI at any time.
Okay, I promise I won't use it. I will not use it.
You came close there with analytics.
Yeah. I remember thinking, at seeing that product demonstrated, I thought, okay, well, it's interesting, because usually the way software that I've seen, a lot of software sort of leads you through a process as though they're taking you by the hand like a wizard and showing you through it. But Evisort was really interesting because I almost imagined it as like, those aeration machines that reach through the grass and punch holes to let the water go in. Yeah. It was almost like pulling the data out that you needed and sort of organizing it for you.
Yeah.
And I think even with, this kind of idea has been going on because of Discover Ready. I know this kind of thing about you've got this enormous haystack, right? And then you're shrinking it down to a smaller data set has existed. But I think that the data analysis has gotten so good that they're able to use it for more purposes, and it's more exacting. And it was kind of a light bulb for me. I said, this is really interesting. This kind of, it just sort of comes through the ground instead of leading you through a path, right?
Yeah.
So and that was really, I think that was the most recent moment of being like, wow, that really knocked me over.
And there's so much of technology that I think, I call it the Jules Verne factor. Jules Verne was writing in the 1800s about things like submarines and technology advances that were just considered ridiculous. And then they all came true. Electricity, widespread electricity. And I think we have that now. it was, I think, Newton who said, you know, I haven't done anything that spectacular. I stand on the shoulders of giants. And people forget that the basis for a lot of the technology we do started with people who kind of, you know, the first wave on the beach who got kind of decimated. And with that stuff, I think about the knowledge management people from 20 years ago who really were, you know, nobody listens to the prophet in his own land, right?
Yes.
People like Ron Friedman, who was building structures inside of Wilmer Cutler Pickering to do these sorts of things. Peter Krakauer.
Mary Abraham.
Yes, Mary Abraham, exactly.
Yes.
There were some brilliant people who were doing this sort of stuff, but they were too far ahead of their time.
Yeah.
And the technology, the hardware wasn't there too. You talk about the infrastructure, and
Yeah.
you know, we've come so far with not just faster hardware, but cheaper hardware. So doing these things is easier to do, and the rise of the internet. But still, I think about a lot of these things and say, wow, these people were onto something back then. They just didn't have quite the tool set that they wanted to get, you know, to make it so.
I think you're right. I think knowledge management was so abstract to people. I don't think they understood that. And then I remember thinking this because Mary and I know her fairly well, and I would say, okay, people are now talking about information governance. I was like, that's the same thing.
Dude, yeah. Come on.
They're acting like it's this brand new thing.
Like
and
we just discovered it.
You know, just I feel the same way a little bit with, I didn't want to change the subject too much, but like, you know, with tools that say now like the technology can learn from itself. And, you know, I said, well, there was heuristic profiling and there was predictive coding and there were, this is not brand new stuff. This is all like,
it's just the next generation of it.
Right. Yeah. It's like you're describing what computers do, right? You're describing what people and computers do together.
Yeah.
And then it's all the terminology that forms a trend underneath it. But
Rocky's brother, Shimmy, and I talk about this in the litigation support world. Like, if the people, we wouldn't have half the problems we have with e-discovery now if people had listened to us at the dawn of the Windows era about some of the litigation stuff that was going on and learn those lessons and learn that technology. And I feel like, yeah.
Well, hold on, Tom. The world would be a much better place if we all just listened to you in the early days.
Well,
not everything. Come on.
There is that. I mean, you know, when you're right, you're right. Okay.
Just back up and say, if everyone would listen to Tom, the world would be a better place.
You know, the problem is, of course, if they want to listen to me, really.
That's right.
Yeah.
Meddling kids.
Get off of my lawn.
Oh my God.
What would you say to someone who's coming out of college and is thinking about a career in marketing, in PR, and they've heard somewhere they've got a relative who's an attorney or something, you know, somewhere or another, they're kind of thinking about this legal and they're interested in technology. Would you recommend it to them? Would you say stay the hell away? Would you, you know, kind of where's your take on it or some advice to some of the young people who are just starting and trying to figure out, you know, should they even break into this field?
Right.
Or if they are starting to break in, what are some tips to help them along?
Buy lots of aspirin.
Well, I know, right? I will say, I think it's a fantastic opportunity to come into this industry right now. There are so many companies now. They're growing. This industry has attracted international attention. You know, there were, even 10 years ago, I would tell people there was a conference of legal technology, and they'd say, really? They have a whole conference for that? You know, and I'm like, let me send you a picture from Legal Tech, and you can see that there are hundreds of companies and thousands of people that assemble and study and learn about and sell legal technology. But I really think this is the heyday of legal tech. You know, it has reached that critical mass point of being so hot. There are so many new entrepreneurs doing very interesting things, and I think there's enough business to go around for everybody. And the legal ops world is creating some really interesting positions within corporations that combine, you know, business side, law, technology. So I think, you know, if if someone's looking for opportunity, they really could look no further than this industry. I will say, though, that you really have to like the technology and be interested in it, because you can't really sell something that you don't have an affinity for, you don't understand. And that has always been a challenge in finding the right people to work with me, is that, you know, people think of it as a stop on the train. They want to be a PR person in beauty. They want to be a travel writer, whatever they want to do. They don't want to learn about legal tech, right? And to try to, you know, try to present these ideas to people when you don't understand them, it really doesn't go anywhere. So I would say, try it out and see if you're interested in it. I actually got my first job at Forbes through a temp to perm job, believe it or not. I was temping in the city while to support myself while I was looking for a job in Manhattan, and no one would give me a job because I didn't have any New York experience, right? So how do you get the experience when you don't have the job, right? And I got a temp job at Forbes, and the manager really liked me, sent me to HR, and they hired me. And I had been a temp, and I don't even know if people do that anymore, but it was a great opportunity to see if it was a fit for both of us. And any kind of opportunity like that, where you could be an intern, you could have a mentorship, you can, get started in a place to see if it feels right to you before you jump in with both feet. To me, that's the greatest idea ever.
Pre-COVID, I saw a lot of that in the paralegal field. There's a lot of hiring temps, and now I'm not sure, where that's at. You'd have to talk to somebody like Jared Casiglia, who does placements, and who would know that.
Right.
But I was laughing a moment ago, Christy, not because of, well, it was because of something you said, but not at you. But you said, if you're going to,
something I said, how could that be?
Well, because it was so apropos that you said, if you're going to sell work in this market, you have to understand the technology and have an affinity for it. The problem also is that you're selling to people who don't understand it and don't have an affinity for it.
I don't want to hear about it.
Right. So it's really incumbent on you to understand what's going on, because it's a tough, unfortunately, we talk about this, Rachi and I talk about it a lot. The education of technology, just the technology piece, is still very much lacking in the legal arena. So it makes our job, all of our jobs, that much harder.
Yes.
I was talking to our friend Craig Bear this morning, who's having a problem, getting an installation going with an IT firm and a law firm. And he said, I don't know what to do. I dumb it down as much as I can. I send him screenshots of, here, press the F10 key. See, here it is, arrow, F10 key. But I don't know what else I can do.
The problem is that you're right. The people who are the purchasers in general don't have an interest in truly learning about it. They need it, but if you try to simplify it too much in order to help them understand, then it loses the value of what it is that you're doing. So trying to find that balance between dumbing it down enough and simplifying it enough that it makes sense, but still maintaining the value of whatever it is that you're doing, so that they're willing to pay what you're actually asking them for it. That it's typically that it's actually worth. It's a challenge.
It's a challenge. You don't want it to be this black box, magical hexadecimal header, positronic thruster.
Make it seem much more.
But you don't want it to be run spot run either. Yeah.
Well, I do think that the pandemic has helped that situation. I mean, I follow some of the industry surveys out there, and I think that that since the pandemic made everyone work from home and made people use the technology, especially the lawyers then had to use the technology. They had no choice. They didn't have someone sitting outside their office that they could throw work out to. They had to learn it. And I think, one of the people I was talking to was in the training, like law firm training realm. And she said that their training classes were selling out, like to the point that they didn't even have enough space for all the lawyers that wanted to go to the training. And usually it was like very difficult to get them to attend. They didn't want to sacrifice the billable time, and they didn't want to invest the time. They figured, let my paralegal and let my legal assistant learn that. I'm not going to have to know it, or not as much. And so I think that this has changed things. I can't say permanently, but it does seem to have, and I also think the second factor is the corporate legal operations aspect has driven the law firms to be accountable in a way that was not there before. So they're not even going to get past the RFP stage if they don't have this, that, and the other thing, right? And that gets them on the bottom line.
Right? They got to be able to explain it. Yeah,
that's right.
And in my world, in the litigation world, we're seeing the same thing with the judges saying, you know, it's the old Judge Peck saying, you know, bring your geek to court because you're not making any sense here, Buster.
Right.
You know, you got to be able to explain it in common sense language to the judges. Yeah.
Well, you know, so what you're describing has actually been a large part of why people hire me, because I'm a layperson, so to speak, right? I didn't go to school to be a CIO and I didn't go to school to be a lawyer, right? So I write articles for legal publications about identity theft. Am I a security expert? No, but I know who to talk to get that information. And I know how to present it in a way that people will understand it, right? And sometimes that is just as important as the technology itself and what it does, because without that person that knows how to make it digestible for the recipient, you bought it for no reason at all.
That was a real strength of Gail's, and one thing that
it was
brought her to the table for so many people was, you know, I used to love to watch her at a show because she'd be in the booth and people would go, oh, wait a minute, this, you know, it's a ditzy girl. She's got high heels. She's not going to. And at the end of the day, she'd have more lead sheets than the two salespeople in the book.
Smart as a whip, too. Oh, my gosh. I loved seeing her. To me, I could see her from a mile away, too. It was like, well, Tom, you're the same. I'd see you from a mile away. I'd be like, oh, you know, the lights would open up and I'd be like, it's Gail, it's Tom, the two of you. You know, you're definitely in like the top 5 people I look forward to seeing at every show. And I miss that part so much, right?
Yes, I was just going to say, boy, do I miss that. The personal touch, the personal content.
How's that impacted your business for the last year? I mean, obviously.
It has changed it a lot because, you know, a lot of what I did was supporting these big trade shows, right? And the vendors would go to the shows and they'd exhibit and they'd need press releases and case studies and articles done. And I'd arrange meetings with the press while they were there at the conference and everything. And the conferences being canceled or made virtual made that impossible. So really what it ended up doing was opening up a lot of funding for content creation. And so a lot of those budgets went into, you know, creating surveys and studies and white papers and case studies and thought leader articles and write all those things. So I feel like I'm drawing much more heavily upon my writers and myself on the writing side, because, you know, it was like, well, we need to build awareness. We need to let people know what we're doing and, you know, and put our people out there. But we can't go to, you know, we couldn't go to ILTACON last year. We couldn't go to Legal Tech in person, right? So that's how I think being able to change on a dime has been the key to 16 plus years of keeping the business going. You can't ever say, this is what I do and it's never going to change. It may change tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right. And you have to be okay with that. Otherwise, you know, if you try to rigidly stick to a definition of your business that doesn't work anymore, you could be out of business. So flexibility is so important.
Well, in against that spirit of flexibility, we are going to have to close this up with the same question that we ask every single show.
But it's a good question. The $1 million question.
It's a good question. Yeah.
Yes. So
you know, sometimes when you have a winner, you stick with it.
I change it.
Yeah.
So, Chris, and we gave you a little preview of this, and it's really interesting to me seeing the diversity of answers we get. But if you could spend a day with anybody from our profession, living or dead, doesn't have to be somebody who's around right now, and it doesn't have to be working. It could be I want to take somebody on a tour of New York that they've never seen before. Or I want to go hiking in the Appalachian Trail.
You want to come, Rachi?
Yeah, right. Anything you want to do with somebody, but it has to be a person from our profession. Who would that person be, and what would you do?
That's such a good question. I think it would have to be dinner with Browning Marion.
I
love that
more.
man.
Yeah, I miss him a lot.
He was so kind, so intelligent, so I just had a peaceful feeling every time I was around him, and he knew his stuff, and he never made anyone feel inferior about knowing less.
Exactly.
He was a class act.
Yeah,
I miss him a lot.
He was the sort of guy.
Can I add someone too? Is it okay
Sure.
if I add Gail too? Can I add Gail?
Of course.
Except for
Gail,
Gail,
you take shoe shopping on Madison Avenue, right?
Yeah, I was going to say.
Gail and I would go shopping. Yes. But I think she would buy most of the clothes. I would just hold her bag. I'm not much of a shopper, but I love what she picks out.
Well, that was, she loved New York for the reason you just said about all the people and, people we don't see much during the year. And, she just loved going there and seeing everybody from our profession, who she'd known for years, like you. But she liked that shopping as well.
So, Christy, you know that once you're having dinner with Gail and Browning, you know that Tom's showing up also. So
Tom, we're keeping a chair open for you. You know that.
Well, and it's so funny. You talk about diverse personalities who were just great friends. Browning and Gail loved each other.
Exactly. That is so true, isn't it? I mean, they really would never put them together in a,
you wouldn't think of
at a dinner table otherwise. But
yeah.
I do think that's one of the great things about this industry, though, because it is a very unique, singular experience, and there are so many interesting, intelligent people. I've met people who are legal administrators, who are opera singers, I've met people who are software company owners, and there's so many interesting, funny, fascinating people in our business.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of pride being in this industry. I love it. It's like my second family.
Yep. No, I agree. Honestly, that's one of the other reasons I want to go to ILTA. I'm just, there are people who I don't get to see anyways, COVID or not, who I would only see once a year at one of these conferences. And, I'm hoping to run into a few of them as well. So that's it.
All right. Well, I'll let you know about that. I'm not.
All right. Keep me posted. Keep me posted.
I will.
Thanks so much for your time. Great catching up with you again.
It's a pleasure to be with both of you.
Great hearing that you're doing well. And your daughter is how old now?
She's 7 years old.
Oh my God.
Going strong.
I can remember when she was a little.
I brought her to Legal Tech in her stroller.
But there was another trade show, as I recall, who wouldn't let you in because she didn't have a pass.
They didn't know that I'm from New Jersey and we just go in the back door.
Like a 1-year-old baby, and it's like, where's his pass? Like, well, it's a her, and I didn't know she needed one.
We didn't exactly have a pass.
That was funny.
Thank you, Christy.
Thank you
an awful lot, Christy.
Thanks so
Rocky,
much.
thank you so much. Be safe. Hope everything works out over there, and all of you guys continue to stay safe. And we will see you all next time on the eDiscovery channel.